War has a tendency to spiral out of control, and that is what we're seeing in the Middle East right now. Now, we did just hear of a drone attack on a U.S. military base called Tower 22. There is some discrepancy as to whether that is located just inside Jordan or just inside Syria, but 3 U.S. soldiers are reportedly have been killed in action. 34 more have been wounded. This is a major event. This is the first time American soldiers have been killed since October 7th, since the attack on Israel. Since then, we haven't actually had any soldiers lose their lives, but this is definitely a change. Now, this was a drone attack that was launched by undoubtedly Iranian-backed militias, Shia militias. Reports are that it came from Syria, that it didn't come from Iraq, but with the situation right now, very fluid. We'll keep you updated on what's going on with that. But we already have multiple lawmakers out there saying that a strike against Yemen, it's hard to keep track of all the people we're supposed to be against right now. But the Syrian Iranian militias, or Hezbollah in Syria, they apparently are the ones who are behind this. Now, my point here, and I really want to drive home, is how we are against so many people, so many different groups over in the Middle East right now. This is spiraling out of control, and we're supposed to apparently be at war with everybody. We're already doing retribution strikes against the Houthis in Yemen. We're doing retribution strikes against the Syrian militias in Syria. We're doing retribution strikes against the Iranian militias in Iraq. We're providing weapons as retribution against Russia. We're providing weapons as retribution against Lebanon. We're giving weapons as retribution against Gaza and Hamas. It seems like not only are we defending everybody in the world, but that has put us smack dab in the middle of every single conflict in the world at the same time. And so this call on us to attack Iran, which is crazy, honestly, because of the decisions of this administration and 2 administrations ago, Iran has the capability of making nuclear weapons. Let's just be frank about that. We're told by the Atomic Agency, Atomic Energy Agency, or whatever it's called, IEA something. They've said that Iran has at least enough uranium, weapons-grade uranium, to produce at least 2 nuclear weapons. So we have to go into any conflict with Iran with the understanding that they have nuclear weapons. And since their express purpose is to wipe Israel off the face of the earth, we have to take that kind of seriously. And with all these ballistic missiles flying around and air defense systems, it's hard not to see this as them testing the defense systems and the anti-missile systems of Israel as well as the United States. What type of missiles can get through defense systems? So they know what they're going to put the nuke on. They have the capability of transporting things without challenge across Iraq right now. So the Iranians can put a missile, essentially, on a truck and take it through Iraq without being stopped all the way to the Syrian border, and then they can travel through Syria all the way to the Israeli border right now. They can put a nuke right on the border of Israel and use a short-range missile of some sort to bring it into Israel. That's the situation we are now, where we have made the decisions where we've let Iran get to the point where they have nukes or they are nuke capable, with Russian scientists helping them, with North Korean scientists. I'm not sure if that's really a thing, but they also have Chinese advisors as well. They have access to the technology to build nuclear weapons. And then on top of that, they have the enriched uranium to do this. So this isn't far-fetched at all. we've gotten ourselves into a terrible mess by, in some ways, not doing anything and doing really bad things, like giving the Iranians billions and billions and billions of dollars for releasing a couple of U.S. hostages, which they took in order to get access to billions and billions of dollars. It was the two administrations ago, the Obama administration, that gave palletfuls of cash to Iran. And the Biden administration has given them essentially palletfuls of cash as well in this administration. And now we're turning around and saying, okay, now they're the enemy. Well, then why were you giving the enemy cash? Same thing with Hamas. During the Trump administration, they cut off all funding to Hamas. One of the first things that President Biden did when he got back into office, was to immediately start sending money to Hamas again. One of the first things he did was he came in and said, oh, I see the Trump administration has labeled the Houthis as a terrorist organization, making it very difficult for Iranians to send missile parts and missiles into Yemen. President Biden and his wise staff came in and said, they're not really our enemies. These guys aren't bad guys. Let's lift the restrictions on importing of technology into Yemen, like from Iran. All those missiles got to Yemen between Biden's coming into office and then this recent round of attacks on shipping. The decisions of this administration and the Obama administration have caused problem after problem after problem after problem. Do you think that Iran would be a little bit worse off if it had over 10 billion less US dollars that between the Obama administration and the Biden administration they've given them? Probably. We're doing airstrikes on Iraq. We're doing airstrikes on Syria. But apparently, according to some lawmakers out there, that's not enough now. We got to do airstrikes directly on Iran. Some of these guys are out there calling for blood, and they have been. They've been trying to get us to attack Iran directly. And there's got to be an understanding that at a certain point, airstrikes on Iran will just mean World War III. If we attack their oil storage tanks or their refineries along the coast, what's to stop them from immediately retaliating against the Strait of Hormuz and against Saudi Arabia, against UAE, Bahrain, Qatar, all these other oil allies of the United States, and the price of oil will go through the roof like nobody's business. Not only that, but the world trade will be seriously hindered. We see this idea that we can play nice with a lot of these organizations, these countries, and then when they turn around and come back and attack us, that there won't be any accounting for who did what. The money that the Biden administration funded directly to Hamas, some of it was used for the attack that was carried out against Israel. Is there going to be no accountability for that? Israel wants weapons and wants money from the United States to go back against Hamas, but quite frankly, what brought that about? In part, it was the policies of the Biden administration. And you go around the world, and I'm not going to just say this is all one party, because you go back to the Bush administration, you go back and you see some of the things that happened under President Trump, whether they were actually signed off on by him or whether it was more the deep state just kind of doing their thing. The policies all across the world, the United States has ruled with an iron fist and no accountability. The nations that we've toppled, the governments that we've installed. You don't have to go any further than looking at the country in Eastern Europe that is now embroiled in war to see the handiwork of the CIA. That is not in dispute whatsoever. There was a democratically elected government there, and it was overthrown by a CIA-backed coup. That's not even in discussion. That happened. And that's what got Bear Country so upset, is that the CIA came in and overthrew the government, and they did not want to see a U.S. puppet government there in that place. And they said, we will go to war over this. And they did. And everyone in the West is just like, I can't believe that happened. How could they possibly go to war with this country? The government that we installed there. We have so many enemies now that have necessarily nothing against the United States except the fact that we're in their business. What business does the United States really have in the Red Sea? What business does the United States really have in Iraq or Syria? I mean, look at a map. Is it next door? Is it one of the countries right next to us? I mean, we can't deploy troops to Mexico, heaven forbid, but we have no problem sending them halfway around the world to some random place where we just decided to invade Iraq, just decided to invade Syria. What about sovereignty there? What about, there's been floated out there, well, what would happen if the United States were to invade northern Mexico and just take a buffer zone and then just make it impossible for anyone to come across the border? And people are like, no, that's insane. The United States can't just invade a sovereign nation. And yet, we invaded Libya, invaded Iraq, Afghanistan, Syria. I mean, how many countries have we not invaded? That's really the better question out there. We haven't invaded quite so many countries in Europe, but when it comes to Africa, Asia, South America, Central America, we've invaded basically everybody. So the idea that we suddenly, when we have a distinct major national interest in something, an existential threat against the United States, we can't take any action. Can we invade Mexico just to take some of their territory? Yes, we can do that. Can we invade Cuba? Can we invade Haiti? Can we invade Nicaragua? Can we invade Panama? Can we invade... How many other countries do we want to list here? We can invade all these other places because we don't like that government or whatever. But when it comes to the existential threat of the United States, we can't do anything. We can bomb Yemen, but we can't bomb Mexico. Because, those Yemen folks are threatening a vital U.S. national interest. How? We have troops in so many countries, we can't even keep track of them. You can't even tell me how many countries the United States has troops in, because it's impossible to track, because we have bases, and then we have outposts, then we have shared military bases, then we have these little training missions, then we have resupply points, and then we have so many troops in so many different places. I think it'd be hard for the U.S. Department of Defense to be able to figure out how many different countries we have troops in at any given day. They can't figure out where, billions and billions and billions of dollars have gone. They've lost well over $1 trillion, and they can't account for it whatsoever. They don't even know where it went. So is it really too far-fetched to say that they don't even know where all the U.S. troops are right now? That's not far-fetched at all. We have soldiers in Jordan. How many people knew that? Now, that's not too unknown. They've been a pretty strong U.S. ally for a long time, as in they've allowed U.S. soldiers to be there, protect them, and to stage equipment and military stuff there, but we're supposed to keep it relatively quiet so that they don't get into too much trouble. But we have troops in Iraq. We have troops in Syria. We're not supposed to have troops in Syria, but we do. You know, do we have the permission of the Syrian government? No, we don't. We just kind of invaded it. Still supposed to be like a black operation, not officially soldiers there. You know, we're still playing the same game that Russia was playing in Crimea. You know, like Crimea was being invaded by these little green men, and it's like, who are those guys? Those aren't our troops. Basically, the United States is basically saying the same thing with Syria. Well, those aren't our troops. Who's to say who they are? Because we don't officially have troops in Syria. But everyone keeps saying that we do. So the games and the hypocrisies are so thick. Wouldn't it be better if we pull back our troops out of all these places? They're just being targets. We're putting our troops on the ground and just allowing our enemies to shoot at them. They don't really have a practical mission. What's their mission in Syria? Are they really trying to topple the government there? No, they're not. What are they doing? They're basically occupying oil fields. Who's getting all that money from those oil fields that U.S. troops are protecting? Oh, well, we don't want to talk about that. We don't want to talk about that. Our troops in Iraq are protecting who knows what. They're not protecting oil fields there. They're just kind of there. The Iraqi government is in the process of evicting U.S. soldiers from the country, and they're trying to get President Biden to agree to withdraw the troops out of Iraq, who are there for, again, who knows why they're there, but apparently they are. What can we do next? We can demand that our leaderships start protecting vital American interests, which means like things like the border, things like countries that are near to the United States. I mean, who's really going to get on a boat and try to invade the United States? I know some people out there talking about Russia's going to invade Alaska, which is just really kind of a joke. But then again, with all of our troops deployed in every other part of the world except for Alaska, you got to wonder, maybe they actually have a chance, because all of our troops are going to be stuck over in the Middle East, fighting Iran or somebody, or defending Taiwan. We really need to do a strategic reassessment of where we have our troops in the world and why. Because I think most Americans can't quite figure out how we have U.S. troops in Africa and all these places that we can't pronounce for no apparent reason. And yet, that's exactly the cornerstone of the U.S. empire, is to be the peacekeepers, be the police force of the world whenever something is happening where there is money made that we don't like. And that brings us to today. What will happen next? I don't know, but we are concerned about any kind of major escalation against Iran. Iran wants chaos across the Middle East, and they will use anything as the as justification for intensified attacks against U.S. soldiers across the Middle East, where we have soldiers for, once again, no apparent reason. All right, friends, thanks so much for watching. Let me know down in the comments what you guys think about the situation and whether we should really get into World War III just because of Iran's attacks. We've been saying for weeks and months now that all they have to do is get lucky once, and then we're probably going to get drawn into a much more deeply into a war in the Middle East. It's like we've been sending soldiers out there to be tripwires in order to draw us into a conflict with Iran. Then you also have to ask the question, was this truly Iranian militias that fired the drone at the U.S. soldiers? Are there some other folks in the Middle East that might have a vested interest in the United States being drawn more into conflict with Iran? One could ask that question as well. I'll leave you with that. All right, friends, thanks so much for watching. If you want to check out another video from the channel, there's one right up here. I'll see you over there, or I'll see you guys later. Steve Poplar of the Poplar Report, out.